with this year's deficit likely to come at close to $100 billion, an all-time record, and with gross federal government debt likely to top $1 trillion in the next few years, reining in debt and deficit is every bit as important as reining in Victoria's spike in corona cases. As I said, 75 new diagnoses today, making that 288 active corona cases in Victoria, 9 in hospital and 1 in intensive care. Despite what looked like an authorised leak over the weekend, the federal government now seems to be stepping back from suggestions that taxpayers would be increasing the dole by $75 a week. Now, while there's a live argument as to whether the current rate should return to its old level or not, an increase of $75 a week to the standard dole would cost an additional $3 billion a year compared to the nearly $10 billion annualised cost of the current double dole, which most of us now know as the JobSeeker payment. And if you think the double dole, the $10 billion, sounds a lot, as the PM reminded us all today, the JobKeeper payment, that's the $1,500 a fortnight paid as a wage subsidy, the JobKeeper payment costs taxpayers $10 billion a month, not a year, like the double dole. So it's clear things can't stay the way they are now in perpetuity because as a country, we simply can't afford it. Both the JobKeeper and JobSeeker payments, legislated to last 6 months, were put in place hurriedly at the end of March when the economy was shutting down. However justified they were then, the problem was always going to be taking them away, given that both businesses and job seekers inevitably were going to become dependent on them. And we said this all at the time, if you remember. Of course, that's one of the reasons why governments have to be so careful about any new spending programs, even those introduced in a crisis, and even when they're earmarked as temporary, because the instant they're there, they develop a massive and very vocal constituency to keep them in place. Qantas, well, they've just announced, as we know, last week that they're letting go 6,000 staff and leaving 15,000 more being stood down on a long-term basis. That's out of 30,000 overall staff. Now, they're one of the highest profile bidders for this wage subsidy to be extended indefinitely. You can be sure there'll be others too, particularly in the tourism sector. And I'm sorry to say, given the budget repair job ahead of us all, that some extension to JobKeeper will almost be unavoidable for industries like tourism impacted by the corona crisis long term, and given, particularly in the issue of aviation, we're unlikely to see international travel at least until the middle of next year. But in my view, it should be sector-specific support and also redesigned to taper away so that businesses understand that no subsidy is lasting forever. After all, there are already numerous reported examples of employees with staff on JobKeeper struggling to get them to report for work or refusing to work as directed. Now, I don't pretend for a moment that it would be easy to live on the dole as it was. The trouble with any increase is that it must be carefully balanced between supporting people who need a hand up and then not allowing it to become a handout so that it reduces the incentive to find work. Already, as you know, there's plenty of disincentives already built in the system for Australians not to take entry-level jobs in our economy. That's why so many people picking fruit or working in nursing homes or cafes are foreigners, backpackers or specifically imported seasonal workers from our region. Of course, there'll be some, with Anthony Albanese leading the chorus, of course, saying that the government should just keep spending. And sure, government can get away living beyond its means a bit longer than any of us can, but eventually people will lose confidence in the currency if spending outstrips revenue for too long and it goes too far. So the PM, he is entitled to feel proud of the government's work so far to get us where we are in this corona crisis. And I'm sure the Liberals will be buoyed by today's poll results, just a week out from the Eden-Monaro by-election. The hard decisions, Australia, are only just beginning. And if you think The bad news out of Victoria is tough. Wait for the economic reality come September.